Imagine, for just a moment,
Yeah.
that you possess a $300 million fortune.
Okay, that is quite the scenario to start with.
Right. It's unimaginable wealth.
Yeah.
And you own three incredible, just sprawling mansions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There is a massive apartment in Manhattan. Well, actually, multiple apartments knocked together.
Wow, okay.
Then there's a huge country estate in Connecticut.
Okay.
And as if that's not enough, there is Bellascardo.
Which is where?
It's this majestic cliffside property overlooking the Pacific Ocean in California.
So literally coast-to-coast luxury.
Exactly, coast to coast. Now, I want you to hold that picture of ultimate financial freedom in your head. You got it.
Yeah, I'm picturing it.
Okay, now imagine voluntarily spending the last 20 years of your life living in a standard, entirely ordinary hospital room.
Wait, what? Like a regular hospital?
A regular hospital room. You are not sick, you are not dying, but you never, ever leave.
I mean, that completely defies the fundamental assumption we all make about wealth, you know. We are so conditioned to believe that money buys autonomy, that it opens every possible door for you.
Yes, exactly.
But in this case, the resources were basically used to permanently lock the door from the inside.
It is wild. And today, we are taking a deep dive into the story of Huguette Clark. She had all of that immense wealth, lived to be 104 years old, and ultimately triggered one of the strangest, most explosive inheritance battles in American history.
And this isn't just about, you know, gawking at the eccentricities of the ultra-rich.
No, not at all. Our mission with this deep dive is to unpack the exact circumstances of her isolation. We want to extract the ultimate masterclass in what happens when estate planning goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah, it really is a masterclass in what not to do.
It is like building an impenetrable fortress to protect your wealth, but then leaving the back door wide open and then being shocked when absolute chaos just wanders right in.
And, you know, I think the stakes of this story apply to absolutely everyone listening.
Really, even if you don't have $300 million.
Especially then. Regardless of your net worth, the fundamental lesson of Huguette Clark's life is brutal but necessary.
Which is?
If you do not actively, legally protect your intentions while you are alive and capable, complete strangers are going to sit in a boardroom and dictate your life's meaning after you are gone.
Oof. Yeah, that is a heavy lesson. But to really understand the bizarre legal war over her wealth at the end of her life, we have to start with the tragedies that caused her to abandon that wealth in the first place.
Right, the early years.
Yeah, her story actually begins in the shadow of the Gilded Age. So Huguette was born in Paris in 1906, into a level of wealth that is, frankly, difficult to even contextualize today.
We are talking about the absolute peak of American industrialist money here.
The Copper Kings, right?
Exactly. Her father was William Andrews Clark. He was one of the great copper kings of his era. I mean, his fortune literally rivaled John D. Rockefeller's.
That is insane to think about.
It really is. And when you are born into that specific strata of society in 1906, you aren't just wealthy. You are completely insulated from the reality of the rest of the world.
From day one.
Literally, from the moment you take your first breath, you are in a bubble.
And to give you, the listener, a physical sense of that insulation, let's just consider her childhood home. Her family lived in a mansion on Fifth Avenue in New York City.
Calling it a mansion almost feels like a joke, honestly.
I know. This single house had 121 rooms.
In Manhattan.
In Manhattan. Inside, they had a private theater. They had their own Turkish bath.
Naturally.
And they even constructed a private tower, specifically to give the family panoramic, unobstructed views of Central Park.
It was basically a modern-day palace designed to keep the outside world completely out.
Right. But wealth of that staggering magnitude often operates as a double-edged sword, doesn't it?
It really does. Because it can build a 121-room fortress with a private tower, sure, but it has absolutely no mechanism to stop tragedy from just walking right through the front door.
And tragedy came early for Huguette, and it came often. When she was just a teenager, she watched her older sister, who she was incredibly close to, die of meningitis.
Which is just devastating.
Awful.
Yeah.
Then, when Huguette was only 19, her father passed away. And in her 20s, she attempted to build a life of her own. But a brief marriage ended in divorce within 2 years.
So she just experienced this rapid, devastating succession of losses at such a young age.
Exactly. And following all that, Huguette began to slowly and quietly withdraw from society altogether.
Her withdrawal is such a fascinating study in the psychology of extreme wealth.
Not so.
Well, throughout her middle years, she poured millions of dollars into collecting antique dolls.
Right. That,
Yeah, and she spent her time painting. But the most revealing behavior is her relationship with her real estate portfolio.
This is the part that blows my mind.
Right. She began purchasing and maintaining these massive properties that she essentially refused to inhabit.
Bill Lascardo is the most famous example of this. She buys this sprawling oceanfront estate in Santa Barbara. Then she employs a full staff to maintain it perfectly, decade after decade.
Without ever going there.
Exactly. The lawns are manicured, the cars are maintained, the dust is swept. But she never visits.
Not once.
And she also bought a massive country home in Connecticut specifically to serve as a safe house during the Cold War era.
And let me guess, she never went there either.
She never spent a single night there. Okay, let's unpack this, because people quickly label behavior like this as, crazy rich eccentric.
Oh, absolutely. That's the easy narrative.
Right, but given the sudden deaths of everyone close to her during those formative years, couldn't this just be a massive trauma response? Like an extreme version of nesting, but with real estate you never actually use.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, wealth can insulate you from the physical discomforts of society, but it offers zero insulation from grief.
Wow, yeah, that is so true.
If we look at the empty, perfectly preserved houses and that massive doll collection, these aren't just quirky hobbies.
What are they then?
They are highly calculated attempts to exert total control over her environment.
Oh, because her early life was so out of control.
Exactly. Her early life taught her that the world was deeply unpredictable. The people she loved could just vanish overnight. Her marriage could collapse.
So she created a world that didn't change.
Right. She curated environments where nothing ever changed, but a doll doesn't get sick and die.
That is so sad, but it makes so much sense.
It does. An empty house, maintained by a well-paid staff, is always exactly how you left it. She used her hundreds of millions to buy an illusion of permanence.
And that deep psychological need for a static, unchanging environment brings us to the most defining choice of her life. Which brings us to 1991.
Right, when she was in her 80s.
Yes, Huguette is in her 80s.
Yeah.
And she is found in her Fifth Avenue apartment suffering from severe, completely untreated skin cancer.
It was bad.
It was terrible. It had actually disfigured her face by the time anyone even intervened.
But she is rushed to the hospital, and thankfully the medical intervention is entirely successful.
Yeah, the doctors treat the cancer, she recovers, and she is physically cleared to return home.
But she doesn't.
No, she doesn't. She just stays in the hospital. For the next 20 years, she lives in a standard hospital room. First at Doctors Hospital, and then later at Beth Israel Medical Center in Manhattan.
Which is just wild to think about.
She is completely healthy for her age. She is paying her own way out of pocket, which runs into the hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year.
And what does she do all day?
She spends her days watching cartoons and playing with her dolls in this sterile room. Meanwhile, those 3 magnificent mansions sit empty, fully staffed, and frozen in time.
She essentially turned a modern medical facility into her ultimate safe house.
She really did.
But this is the critical turning point where the estate planning disaster actually begins.
Here we go.
Because she retreated to a hospital room to hide from the complexities of the world, right?
Right.
But a woman with $300 million and no immediate family is never, ever going to be left alone.
Here's where it gets really interesting. She essentially created a vacuum. And $300 million hates a vacuum.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like tossing a huge piece of bread into a quiet pond. Eventually, the ducks are going to swarm.
That is a perfect analogy. And this self-imposed isolation brought a very specific cast of characters into her daily orbit.
Who are we talking about?
Well, it is the ultimate irony, really. She walled herself off to protect herself from the unpredictable nature of people, yet she surrounded herself entirely with individuals who had a direct, massive financial stake in her remaining dependent on them.
The entourage.
Exactly. This is how the entourage formed. And the most prominent figure in this group was her private nurse, Hadassah Perry.
The nurse who became her constant companion.
Right, her daily companion.
Yeah.
And the wealth transfer that happened here is staggering.
We aren't talking about, like, a nice holiday tip for a beloved caregiver, are we?
No, no. Over the years, Huguette gave this nurse multiple homes.
Homes.
Plural. Plural. She bought her a Stradivarius violin.
Wait, really? A Stradivarius? Those are worth millions.
Exactly. She wrote checks for millions of dollars at a time. By the end of Huguette's life, the total value of the gifts that flowed to this nurse and her family exceeded $30 million.
$30 million. That is just, I can't even fathom that.
And the nurse was just the most visible beneficiary. The hospital administration was also fully aware of the massive financial asset occupying their room.
Oh, I bet they were.
Internal communications later revealed that hospital executives were actively holding meetings, actual strategy meetings, to figure out how to secure massive financial donations from her.
Which begs the obvious question, right? Who is watching the bank accounts while a 90-something-year-old woman is giving away $30 million and hospital executives are circling like sharks?
Well, that's the scariest part.
Her finances were managed by her lawyer, Wallace Bach, and her accountant, Irving Kamsler.
Just those two.
Just those two men, controlling a vast fortune with almost zero external oversight. And it is a matter of public record that the accountant was a convicted felon.
Yep.
I mean, how does a billionaire's estate end up completely managed by a convicted felon and a lawyer with no checks and balances?
It really comes down to the weaponization of power of attorney and a complete lack of independent fiduciary duty.
Explain that for us.
Okay, so a fiduciary is legally obligated to act in your best financial interests, but when you grant broad power of attorney to individuals without establishing a secondary independent auditor to watch them, you are basically handing over the keys to the vault.
No one is watching the watchers.
Exactly. Because Huguette was so isolated, these two men became the absolute gatekeepers to her entire financial existence. There was no family member looking over the ledger.
No one asking questions.
Right. No independent trust officer questioning the millions of dollars moving out of her accounts. The isolation disabled all the normal alarm systems.
And her actual blood relatives were entirely locked out of the building. Right?
Completely locked out.
Her distant relatives, we're talking grandnieces and grandnephews from her father's first marriage, were disconnected from her daily life. But when some of them actually attempted to visit her at the hospital, they were literally turned away at the door by her inner circle.
By the entourage.
Yes. That specific dynamic, the entourage hoarding access on the inside and the family locked on the outside, is the exact friction point that caused the legal explosion.
Because eventually the clock runs out, and a person's final wishes have to be legally documented.
Right.
The vacuum of oversight she created in that hospital room virtually guaranteed a legal war.
So let's talk about that war.
Yeah.
In 2005, Huguette is 98 years old. She sits down and signs a will. This first document leaves the bulk of her massive estate to her family, those distant relatives she hadn't seen in years.
But then, just 6 weeks later, she signs a second will.
6 weeks.
Just 6 weeks. And the terms of this document are a complete 180-degree reversal.
This second will explicitly disinherits her entire family. Every single one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. It leaves tens of millions of dollars to her nurse. It leaves substantial sums to her lawyer and her accountant.
Which is incredibly convenient, isn't it?
Extremely convenient, since they were the ones managing her affairs and arranging the signing. It also directs her immensely valuable doll collection to a friend. And it designates the largest chunk of the fortune to establish a brand new arts foundation at Belos Gardo, the California estate she hadn't visited since the 1950s.
So just consider the objective facts here.
Okay.
You have two wills. They are signed just 6 weeks apart. They are executed by a 98-year-old woman living in a hospital, and they contain completely contradictory instructions.
As a recipe for disaster.
Legally speaking, this doesn't just invite a lawsuit, it absolutely mandates one.
Predictably, when Huguette finally passes away in May 2011, just 2 weeks shy of her 105th birthday, by the way, all hell breaks loose, 19 of her relatives immediately challenged the second will.
And their legal argument is based on elder exploitation.
Right. They paint a picture of a 98-year-old recluse, locked in a hospital room for 20 years, surrounded exclusively by professionals who were systematically siphoning her wealth.
They argue there is absolutely no way she signed that second document free of coercion.
But wait, let's play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
The defense, meaning the people benefiting from the second will, fired back, right? They argued that Huguette was incredibly sharp right up until the end.
That's right. They presented evidence.
Yeah, evidence that she spoke fluent French, she avidly followed current events, she was entirely capable of making her own decisions. If she was that sharp, couldn't she have just genuinely resented her distant family for not being there?
It's totally plausible.
And loved the nurse who was actually present. Why is elder abuse the default assumption just because a senior citizen favors a caregiver over distant blood relatives?
This raises an important question, and it's really the crux of estate law. It comes down to the difference between testamentary capacity and undue influence.
Okay, break that down for us.
So testamentary capacity just means you understand what a will is, you know roughly what you own, and you know who your relatives are.
That sounds like a pretty low bar.
It is a very low bar. You can have perfect capacity, you can speak 3 languages, and still be the victim of undue influence.
So how does the law actually define and prove undue influence? Because, I mean, you can't just put a camera in a deceased person's head.
Exactly. And this is where the mechanics of the law shift the battlefield. Undue influence occurs when the power dynamic is so skewed that the will of the manipulator replaces the free will of the testator.
Okay, so it's about power.
Yes. In a normal will dispute, the family challenging the will has to prove the deceased was manipulated.
Right, the burden is on them.
But in many jurisdictions, if a caregiver or a lawyer who is in a confidential relationship with the deceased actually writes or facilitates a will that heavily benefits them, the burden of proof flips.
Oh, so the people who got the money have to prove they didn't steal it.
Precisely. They have to prove that the deceased acted completely independently, and when you look at Huguette's environment, proving independence is almost impossible.
Because she was so isolated.
Yes, the family was physically blocked from visiting. The only reality Huguette experienced was filtered through the nurse, the lawyer, and the accountant.
That makes perfect sense.
Right. When your entire existence, your food, your human connection, your access to the outside world is entirely reliant on the very people handing you a new will to sign, the line between genuine gratitude and subtle coercion completely dissolves.
The dependency itself is the coercion.
Exactly.
And because she allowed this immense ambiguity to fester, what Huguette actually wanted was completely erased from the equation. The fate of $300 million was ultimately decided by lawyers haggling over risk management in a boardroom.
The case never even made it to a jury.
It rarely does in these massive estate battles, right?
Very rarely. In 2013, just days before the trial was set to begin, everyone agreed to settle.
Why? Why settle?
Because a jury trial over undue influence is basically a coin toss. The relatives risked getting 0 if the jury believed Huguette actually hated them.
And the other side.
The nurse and the lawyer risked losing everything and potentially facing further criminal scrutiny if the jury found them to be predators.
Okay, so let's run down the actual fallout of this settlement because it is staggering.
Let's hear it.
The distant relatives, the very people Huguette explicitly stated she wanted to disinherit in her final will, walked away with $34.5 million. The nurse, who was slated to receive millions, was stripped of her bequest entirely. She was actually forced to return $5 million in gifts she had previously received.
Incredible.
The lawyer and the accountant got absolutely nothing from the estate. The foundation at Bellascardo was established, but with significantly less funding than originally planned.
And of course, the legal teams representing all these various factions collected tens of millions of dollars in fees for their trouble.
Well, of course, the lawyers got paid.
Always. It really is a masterclass in failure. If you want to ensure your own legacy is protected, there are 4 specific actionable failures from Huguette's life that you have to understand.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Let's break those down. The first massive failure is the complete lack of an independent fiduciary.
Yes. Huguette had no independent advocate. You must have a separation of powers in your life.
Like branches of government.
Basically, yeah. The person providing your daily medical care cannot be the same person receiving your largest financial gifts. The lawyer drafting your will cannot be the person managing your daily checking account without a third party reviewing the ledgers.
You need someone impartial.
You need an independent trust officer or an external auditor who has no financial stake in your will to review your decisions.
Which leads directly to the second failure. The concentration of power. By allowing her lawyer and accountant to act as the sole gatekeepers to her hospital room, she allowed them to control her money, her legal documents, and her physical access to the outside world simultaneously.
There were 0 checks and balances.
Found it all.
And then the third failure is the execution of the documents themselves. Signing 2 completely contradictory wills just 6 weeks apart at the age of 98 is reckless.
To put it mildly.
But doing it with the beneficiaries or the lawyers profiting from the changes facilitating the process is catastrophic. If you are changing your will to disinherit your family in favor of your caregivers should not even be in the building when you sign it.
They shouldn't even be in the parking lot.
Exactly. You must establish a clear, independent environment to execute the documents.
And the fourth, and perhaps most devastating failure, is silence. She never communicated her intentions to anyone outside that hospital room.
Contested wills absolutely thrive in a vacuum of communication. It's like you said, the jigsaw puzzle without the box.
Right. It's like she left behind this massive, incredibly valuable jigsaw puzzle, but deliberately threw away the box with the picture on it. Of course, everyone is going to violently disagree on how the pieces fit together.
And this is the most crucial takeaway for you listening right now. Whether your estate is worth $300 million or you are just trying to pass down a modest family home and some savings, the mechanics of conflict are exactly the same.
It's human nature.
Right. Huguette Clark had the resources to hire the greatest estate attorneys on the planet. She could have hired a corporate trustee to manage her wealth objectively.
She could have just talked to someone.
She could have simply sat down in front of a video camera and recorded a 10-minute statement explaining clearly and calmly why she wanted the nurse to have the money and why the family was being cut out.
Just a video on a smartphone today would do it.
A single video recording would have preempted a multi-million-dollar legal war. You must communicate your intentions clearly, and you must legally structure objective checks and balances in your estate plan.
It is surreal to look at the artifacts left behind after the legal dust finally settled.
What happened to it all?
Well, her Fifth Avenue apartments, the one she abandoned to live in a hospital, sold for more than $50 million.
$50 million, wow.
Her vast art collection was dismantled and sent to auction houses. A single Monet painting that she had hidden away sold for over $20 million.
Just one painting.
Just one. The antique dolls she spent her life obsessively collecting were unceremoniously boxed up and scattered to anonymous buyers across the globe.
And then there's Bellascardo.
Ah, the California
A sprawling estate. It still stands there today, on the cliffs above the Pacific Ocean. It is maintained, perfectly preserved, and entirely empty.
It is a monument to a woman who owned literally everything the world had to offer and utilized almost none of it.
The ultimate tragedy of this story isn't just the money that was lost to legal fees. It is the complete erasure of her agency.
Yeah, her voice was totally lost.
The final lesson, written into thousands of pages of court transcripts, is unavoidable. It does not matter how much wealth you accumulate. If you do not fiercely, legally protect your wishes while you have the capacity to speak for yourself, total strangers will rewrite the narrative of your life after you are gone.
It forces a profound reevaluation of what wealth actually means.
It really does.
It leaves you with a deeply haunting question. We spend our lives pursuing financial security because we believe immense wealth is the ultimate tool for freedom.
The master key that unlocks any door.
Exactly. But when you look at the totality of Huguette Clark's life, you have to ask, did her $300 million actually buy her freedom?
Or did it just provide the unlimited funding necessary to build the world's most luxurious, self-imposed prison?
Right. If you build an impenetrable fortress, lock yourself inside, and hand the only set of keys to the people guarding the door, you aren't really the owner of the castle anymore, are you? Something to think about.